Look, you do not need another AI automation productivity hack to know how to stay irreplaceable and how to be ahead in today's day and age, especially with artificial intelligence. In today's video, I really want to address that the current conversations around the top skills we need to know are actually not directly technical, and a lot of these skills are human based. So by the end of this video, hopefully you're going to know what 3 core skills are essential for you to develop now, how you can actually develop them with scientific research backing, because me and my trusty notebook here will be here for you, and how I've managed to do the same thing and how I believe that if I can do it, anyone can. And if you're new here to this quite fresh channel, my name is Adea. I'm an AI speaker, and I also founded an AI adoption advisory firm, helping companies do exactly this. Understand AI from a people lens. Because the more we get into the space, the more we realize that the problem is mainly in the people and the organizational side, rather than it just being the technology. Now, before we get into those skills, of course, being technical is incredibly important. I suppose we have to define what technical even means, because technically, someone who worked in the sciences has that degree of technical expertise. We're talking here computer scientists in particular, machine learning engineers, anyone that can actually manipulate and work with these algorithms to directly impact how these generative AI models, things like ChatGPT, Claude, actually work in the back end. And for so long, I've been in this space for 4 years now. Every single time it was a conversation of what technical skills do you have? And now, if we look at my background, I'm a cell biologist. I barely even knew how to code. And I was incredibly shrouded by all these limiting beliefs in AI. And I really thought I didn't belong in this space at all, until I went on my own journey, basically, to upskill myself with artificial intelligence completely intuitively. And I realized that other people need the same support. And that's what I'm doing here. But of course, you need the technical skills. It's incredibly important to understand that without the whiz kids that are out there actually building these models, we wouldn't be sitting here through a screen understanding and learning about artificial intelligence. So kudos to the people out there. Disclaimer, love technology. I'm a tech optimist. Love what you technologists are doing out there. Keep rocking it. I'm here for the people who are slightly terrified as to what's to come, and I want to help you. So let's get right into it with the first skill: communication. And no, I'm not talking just how one speaks. And yes, you can roll your eyes if you need to, I promise. Communication is incredibly important, and you would be surprised at how many people don't know how to communicate effectively. It's not just about how you're individually interacting with others. It's how are you telling a story? How are you making someone feel in the way that you are portraying your emotions through words? It is so much more than just dialoguing between another human. How are you turning information you have consumed and information that already exists out there into meaning for somebody? Especially with this overabundance of information that we've spoken about, it is so difficult to be able to distill into simple terms what one thing means without getting bombarded by all the latest headlines or the latest updates. So if you are able to communicate, in particular, a topic that is quite complex, into simple language for anyone to understand, bam, you, my friend, have just communicated. And I can't go back to my cell biology academic roots without giving some scientific evidence. So yet again, me and my trusty notebook are out. There are actually studies to prove that communication has a direct impact on individuals. Princeton neuroscientist Yuri Hassan actually found in his research that when someone is telling a story, the audience members' brains quite literally sync to what is being told. One person on a stage sharing in a simple way a story to make them very engaged, suddenly the entire room of 250 or 300 people are on this quite literal same wavelength as this speaker. But disclaimer, of course, this does mean that the speaker has to be quite engaging for this to happen. Our brains do not fire same patterns if there is a very boring individual talking on stage. So with communication comes how you engage the individuals. How are you telling a story? Because actually telling a story in an eloquent and engaging way means that you are quite literally shaping the recipient, the person listening to you's brain, on how they are absorbing and understanding the information. Imagine all you're doing is talking in an engaging way and explaining something through communication, and the other person's brain quite literally changes. And of course, in today's day and age with AI, you see it's incredibly easy to generate anything that is very basic and rote, that only requires algorithms to put those forward. You can generate proposals and drafts. I could even generate you a whole entire presentation based off of this. But if I'm not there delivering it and making it engaging and fun and breaking it down, you're not going to sit there and just read slides and be done with it. There's so much more to it, and that is the human element. And you're going to notice a pattern and a theme here. All of the skills that we're going to be talking about are directly tied to being human. So provided that you spend some time with yourself, you'll realize that actually you don't need to do much to acquire these new, great, big, flashy skills. You actually already have them inside you. You are already great communicators. And I really like frameworks, as I'm sure anyone does. So the 3 C's of communication might help you to remember this. So we have context, core, and consequence. So with the context, tell us why now. Give us the backstory. Make it compelling. Why should we listen to what you have to say? With the core component, what is that one key message you're trying to translate? How can you do it in a simple, eloquent way with lots of stories? And consequence, tie this back to what this means for your listener. Why are you telling them this story? Yes, we have the context, but make it come back round. Bring the full circle in. So after each of the skills, I'm going to challenge you to a tiny little activity to put what you've just learnt into action. I challenge you to use the 3 C's to write a social media post. This can be on LinkedIn. This could be on Instagram. Tell a story. Instead of, I have just achieved this, in particular on LinkedIn, or I have this really cool shiny tool I really want to sell you. Tell me a story. Comment it below if you will. I want to hear how you have put communication into action. And now the second skill, arguably one of the most critical that actually younger people are fearfully not developing because of this over-reliance on artificial intelligence. We have judgment. And this could be contextual judgment, ethical judgment. You put whatever word in front of judgment that will apply to your particular context to make it more tangible for yourself. But we need to understand that artificial intelligence is fabulous at creating all of these structured data outputs. And again, anything that's boring and that requires automation, it can automatically be done through these algorithms, through these models. And yet AI doesn't take all of the data that it's just created for you, all of the output combined with the context, and then actually using those for decisions. When has AI actually made a very senior level decision inside a company or in an education institution? It doesn't do that. It doesn't have the capabilities. It doesn't know how to influence people and to actually make impact with the values that are already there. And AI is terrible at anything that is ambiguous and contextually driven. It needs that lived experience that, of course, it doesn't have because it's not a human. And don't believe me that judgment is important? Well, academic research comes out. In the 1980s, a fantastic psychologist called Gary Klein actually studied firefighters to understand a little bit more about how they are making decisions. With all the firefighters he studied, we would have expected that at every decision-making pivotal point each of these individual members would have to make, that they would have to sit there and firstly think, okay, I need to weigh out 5 different options before I pick a side. In fact, in those instantaneous life or death decisions, they simply pattern recognized mentally, it was very, very intuitive, and went for it and took the step forward. They didn't sit there thinking, should I do this? Should I do that? There was almost no logic behind. It was just action and move. And of course, AI again doesn't do that. And Klein calls this recognition primed decision model. Because, of course, you're recognizing the patterns that you have maybe experienced before and you're putting them into action straight away. And, of course, sometimes these things don't work out and you have to pivot. And if these firefighters did, they then tried again. There was no logical, let me calculate this before I move. It was simply just moving. And look, AI can, generate all of these options. But we need the humans there to understand how those options will actually fit into reality. So then if we were to put judgment into action, there's 4 steps you can take here. The first being facts. What do we know? How do we move forward from that? The second being frames. How else could we be seeing this? There's never just one correct answer. You must be able to pivot in between, to feel intuitively, to use your judgment into what is the correct answer. Foresight. What are the second and third order effects? A singular decision is never halted at that one person who's going to have the decision made on them. It would be a network and a chain of effects. Foresight is critical. And then, of course, values. And it begs and points to something much deeper inside humans, because what kind of person or organization or whatever it is do we or do you become if you choose a particular way? And imagine humans are doing this almost instantaneously, which, thanks to our brains, means that we can have that judgment at the click of a finger. So my challenge to you to put your judgment into play is, before you open a single AI tool, I would like you to spend 2 minutes coming up with your own answer first. And I know it sounds utterly ridiculous to be telling you this, because we can generate this. We can generate any answer at any time of day in under 10 seconds. But to really develop the muscle of critical thinking and judgment, you need to know how to stop over-relying on the technological outputs that are coming there for you. Because the more you intuitively and instinctively rush to AI to get an answer before you give your brain seconds to fire some neurons to get your memory kicking in, you are over-relying on the technology. Don't over-rely on artificial intelligence. Use your brains, please. And the third and final skill that I would like you all to focus on developing in the age of AI is presence. And no, it is not just charisma. And it's not just the way you talk, but a combination of many different factors, including how you show up in a room. How do you make people feel? How do you stand? How do you dress? How do you behave? How I sort of see it is, could you be the signal in a very, very distracted room? Does the energy shift when you walk into a room? All of these things are learnable and teachable, provided you put some time and effort into doing so. And if you would like me to once again, for the final time, prove this to you, neuroscientist James Cone set up a fascinating study to show that actually humans regulate through other people. In his very famous experiment, participants were expecting an electric shock. A nasty one, I know. And they were an fMRI scan. And if these participants had someone there with them, their threat responses totally decreased, in particular if someone was holding their hand. Whereas if these participants undergoing an electric shock were totally alone, their threat levels and fight or flight signals inside their body shot through the roof. And you see with presence in particular, it's not only about just being there physically for someone, having a physical presence, but also how you make them feel. So, of course, holding someone's hand whilst they're about to have an electric shock is most naturally going to calm the other person down to an extent. I mean, it is an electric shock, and it's great to have those technical skills, but having presence and being able to articulate your thoughts about it and showing either as a leader or as an individual in a community that you are facing some sort of uncertainty with this technology and that we're all in it together builds the trust around you. Simply saying that you don't actually know what careers are going to look like in 5 years automatically makes others feel at ease, because we don't all have to have the answers. And that is what presence tries to teach us. So then my challenge to you, perhaps you might need a journal for this one. I'd like you to write down a sentence starting with, in rooms that matter, I want to be the person who. And now this could go for friendships and when you're having those brunches with your family. Or it could go for when you're on stage, talking, sharing an idea. You're in a meeting, maybe you're in an educational institution, maybe you're at school, and you would actually like to build up your presence. Who do you actually want to be in those rooms? What would you like to leave the room with? Do you want to leave the room feeling happy and excited, optimistic, or like you've just created safety because you're sharing your truest opinion? Lots of food for thought there. Comment. I would like to know what you are defining presence to be for yourselves. And look, we've gone through some 3 fantastic skills for you all to learn. I hope this video gave you enough information to kickstart your learning journey. As AI gets better at generating information at speed, and it will only continue to do so, it is up to us as humans to build the narrative communicatory skills, to build judgment and to express that judgment under pressure, and to be a source of presence and trust for people, especially those who are either more vulnerable or don't know where to start with the technology. But I have full faith in humanity that we'll be able to do that. Thank you so much for watching this video.